So what you are going to see me do, or put together, or make prints like these. I take a print like this and I embellish it. I think these prints, the way they are right now, are lovely. I think they're beautiful, so I'm not sure that I would embellish. They came out of the same batch as this, and this is wild grapevine, and I picked it just a couple of days ago, and it's the middle of summer when I picked it. When I picked wild grapevine last year, it was in the fall, and you can see the difference. So the difference is the tannin is probably really strong this time of year in the plant. I don't really know what tannin is, but it's brown. Brown, that's in the water.
It's on my desk.
So it was very strong, and in the fall it's lighter. So what print am I going to choose? I'm going to choose this one, because that's just a blob, but I have had people say they think that's just beautiful. So it's art's in the eye of the beholder, I guess. Anyway, you don't know what you're going to get when you make a print. When I started out, it will be the same size packet that you will be taking home. So I used you see I have a big roasting pan here. You have to cook your print. I used a small roasting pan that I found at Goodwill. You're going to want to go to Goodwill or Salvation Army, or find a pot that you have at home that you are not going to cook with. So it's got to be that. I do have instructions that will walk you through this whole process. Okay, so your materials and equipment are very simple. You need alum. Alum is typically used, food grade alum, which is what this is used for pickling, peppers, pickles, cucumbers, whatever. It's a pickling spice. You can purchase it in the spice aisle. If you're going to do one print, or just do one batch, you might want to do that. But because I do big amounts, I have several roasting pans that I will get going at one time, I buy it in bulk. So Amazon, this bag, $9, and maybe almost 10. So it's worth it to me to buy it that way. So you need alum, you need white vinegar, just a little bit of white vinegar, you need water, and you need rust. So this is a rust bath I'm going to put these prints in, and the rust works with the alum, works with the spice, and draws the tannin, draws the impression out to go on your paper. I didn't see you there. So you need rust. When you make your packet, there's a bag of rust. I live on a farm, so there's always rust. There are nails in here. Some of the packets might have sharp things. Just be very careful. So now we'll do the process. I think I've talked about everything that we need. Okay. All right. Oh, yeah, you need foliage. Definitely need foliage. I have printed with flowers, but mostly I print with leaves. I didn't plant any flowers this year, so there would be no flowers in that prints. On your instructions, I listed some plants that are good to use around here in Northern Illinois. Somebody asked me, can you print evergreen tree? No, evergreen is a different kind of leaf. It's too thick, it's too waxy. Magnolia is too thick, too waxy. Petunia is too fuzzy, too light. You have to get just a really good weight, and the best one for printing is probably the maple leaf. The maple leaf you can print spring, summer, fall. Leaves from a rose bush,
yeah.
And that's exactly how they print every time.
Oh, they just always look that good.
They're, yes. I have a couple embellished prints, and you'll see that the maple leaves are a little bit redder. That red was there, but I enhanced it. But the color of the season did come through. So that's a good one. I have a sand cherry that I have never used, and that's it's a bush I've been trying to kill in my yard. So I thought, what the heck? And that lovely print that's coming around, that's a sand cherry. So now I've got to nurture it. I use common fern. And what else? Oh, and I've got, I don't know what this is. It's a plant, it's an annual, but it's more like a bush. So you'll feel the leaves are a little bit thicker, and it's just trial and error. This is a new art form in the last 10 years maybe. So people don't really, everybody's experimenting. When you print a batch, we'll be using 10 sheets of paper. You can get good ones in the same lot. You can get good ones, bad ones. You can get bad ones, you can get good ones. So you don't know what you're gonna get, but it's very exciting to go through this process, and when the time comes to open it, open your packet and see what you have, it's very exciting. We'll rinse it under water. We have some that I cooked this morning, and we'll be rinsing those so you can see how they come out. Okay.
Do you flatten your leaves, your foliage,
Do I flatten them?
Do you flatten them?
Mm-hmm. What Oliver is going to do, he's going to show you how I make a packet and how yes, you mash them. They need that pressure. And when I explain what's in here, you will see that. So the first thing I do is, of course, get my foliage and make my mixture of alum, white vinegar, and water. So you take your cut watercolor paper. You can use any kind of paper, but thicker paper is better. I use watercolor paper just because of the strength of the fibers, and it just doesn't break apart. And I like to embellish with that. So before you start any of this, you soak your paper in this mixture, and you get it good and wet. Usually we would soak it and then get our system set up here. Yeah, okay.
You don't want them to stick together, so you kind of got to separate them so the water gets all over.
Okay, so this is one that came apart when I've got it down here that we're going to unveil. So this was one of the layers. It was like the bottom layer. And I will show you right now when I unveil it, what we do is you just rinse this off in the sink under running water. And you see it's yellow, okay? It's yellow. When I first saw that, I don't want yellow. I wanted a print. As it dries, the color comes out. So what, and this is not a good example, but what was yellow, so yellow, will have the browns. Sometimes you pick up greens. The sand cherry was red, but it picked up green. You made green. I do have one that has a flower here. Just this one. You can lightly see that. Yeah. That is borage. I don't know if you've ever heard of that plant, but it kind of reseeds itself. It gets a little blue flower, and that prints. Petunias don't print. Let's see, I should tell you what does print. Marigolds print, but they're so intense when they print, like the orange ones, they're solid orange. It's like you just have a solid orange ball, and it's just way too much. What other flowers?
Sometimes we just did the leaves of the flowers too.
Just the leaves of the flowers, yes. I've done a hydrangea. Elaine, I made a hydrangea for you, and I did a hydrangea the other day. So it was not a good print, but you can see the shape of it, the outline. The print that I made for Elaine, it was more distinct. It was just a good print. The leaves were good. None of this slop was here. And I embellished it, and I thought it was lovely the way it turned out. Yeah. but if you can get a print that you don't have to embellish, that's really good too. Okay, so now Oliver has soaked his paper, and he's going to now start to make his bundle. They call them bundles. You're gonna start with one sheet on the bottom. Now, what I suggested in the information, when you put your bundle in the water, you really don't want that bundle resting on your heat source. Okay, so I started with a wire rack the first time, but then you get those lines in your paper. So if you have some thick cardboard at home and you're gonna use a wire rack, then, put thick paper underneath that first sheet. It's just, again, trial and error. I have since gone from a wire rack to, there's the paper, to these small cookie sheets that fit into my roaster. So I use one on the bottom, and this is what I will set my bundle on. So when he completes a package, a bundle, we're going to set it right on here without stirring it, no water. So anyway, I set them on here, and then you'll learn that process after that. So he's starting with one page, okay, and he's just, you work on a table, you're not gonna work here, you're gonna work on a table, he's just showing you. He is separating, right now, he's separating his plants. And that's really a good idea when you're first starting, because these maple leaves kind of just turned to mush. It's just too much. If you're going to embellish, or highlight, it depends upon what you want to do with the picture. But when you separate, there's a small print there. Michael, can you grab that little one? No, that one right in the middle, that little matted one on the table. Yeah, that was one of my first prints. Thank you. Thank you, assistant. So they were separated. I don't know if you can see that, and you can see each plant. Eucalyptus is phenomenal. That prints really well. Ginkgo. I had my husband plant a ginkgo tree just so I could print. So he's making his packets now. Okay, and so what he did, he put one sheet on the bottom, and then the plants, the flowers, leaves, and then two sheets on top of that.
Because it prints on both sides. So sometimes, the plant was in the middle, and they look slightly different on both sides of the print. So sometimes one side will be better than the other.
So you have a top side to your plant, you have a top and an underside. So your underside, of course, is the underside. That prints differently from the top of your plant. So when I place my foliage on a paper, I'm gonna put all the undersides either up or down. So you want to keep it the same because they aren't gonna print the same. You can tell that this is the underside because you can see the veins really well of the plant. And yeah, this is the top side. Yeah, top. So, that's just a method I learned because I was getting mixed prints. I wasn't paying attention to that there was a top side and a bottom side. You'll see that we have matched prints. They match a top and a bottom, a top and a bottom. So that's why we do two between each layer. And he has 10 sheets of paper, which will be in your packet. So that, I think, would that be maybe five layers? 5 layers, but you're gonna get 10 prints. And hopefully they'll be as wonderful as what we have. So this is my bundle. It's wet, it has the foliage in it. I'm gonna put it in my empty roaster now, my dry roaster. I'm gonna set it on the aluminum pan that I have because it's a flat surface. Okay, so I'm gonna set it here. I usually do 2 at a time. Okay, so I'm gonna set it here. Now, clearly, when I add the water, I don't want this packet to move. You want to keep it. You want the pressure on it to make the impression, and you just don't want it to move and blur like when you take a picture with a camera. So I'm gonna put this on top, and this is still not heavy enough. I use a brick. Okay. You don't have to have these pans. You can put cardboard on the top one and put your brick on top of that. You can use a stone. I have used big those big railroad ties, but they float. They're heavy, but they float. You can use rocks, but you just want to make sure it's all weighed down on the whole thing. You can use, I've used like mayonnaise jars, that size jar filled with water or something, rocks, heavy, just to weight it down. So you have that pressure. So I'm gonna put my brick on here, okay? Now, I'm gonna add my other ingredient, and that's the rust. This is the rust bath. So I put these in everywhere, and then we add our solution. Okay, this was the alum and the white vinegar and water. It's a mordant, whatever a mordant is. It just conditions your paper, conditions the leaves. Some people dip their leaves in it. It's just the solution that works.
Oh, there's air underneath the bottom one, that's why it's floating.
So yeah, so I'm gonna put my second brick in. Okay, so he's gonna fill it with more water now to cover it. You don't have to, but you want your whole thing covered because it's going to simmer for an hour, and that water will evaporate. So you want everything covered. Okay, so what I would do then is, this is the weighting, so you bring it to a boil and then turn it down and simmer for an hour, no more than that. Today, I did a whole different process than what I've been doing for the last 3 years. And I did not know if it was gonna work, but it did, so whew. So you will be doing that process according to the instructions, and I just learned about it last night. Again, anything you want is on the internet. In the past, I would bring it to a boil, simmer for a couple hours, bubbling, cooking, then turn it off and let it sit in the water overnight. So yeah, it was just sat forever. Well, that's a long time, and so I decided to just experiment and try, well, let's let it sit for 5 hours. And I let it sit for 5 hours. It was warm, but I took it apart, it was perfect. Last night, what I read is, you put your bundle in, you put your pressure, you add your water, you bring it to a boil, and you simmer for 1 hour only. 1 hour only. Then you turn it off and you remove the bundles right away. Now, it's tricky removing bundles that are loose between the pans. So I'm going to talk to you another way about securing them. Some people use paper clips just to secure that bundle. Some people tie. I've tied, put string around it. But you're going to want to, before you put that bundle in there, you're going to want to seal it just to hold it together when you pick it out. Okay.
Also to think about, if you do the clips or something, like the grate pan, it might leave impressions on it. So
Right.
maybe double put the cardboard and then the clips,
Right.
or something like that, because all that will transfer into the prints.
Correct. So what I did today, I put 2 under bricks, 2 print bundles, and then I put a bundle under, you can just set it on top. I tied a bundle, which I'm not used to doing, but I did tie a bundle, so when we rinse off the stuff, yeah, it was this one. So I wrapped the string around here, I just wrapped it tight. But I added extra old printing paper that I used just as a barrier to my first printing sheet. So my first printing sheet's under there. This is just my barrier. Like I suggested, you use cardboard or just something like that. So I tied it all up. You don't have to seal it under anything. You can just float it in your water. All right, so I've simmered for an hour, moved it, and I've cooled it. It says wait till it's completely cool, and if you do it late at night, you can let it cool all night. It doesn't matter. It's just out of that rust bath, and it's hopefully not drawing more rust that would partially create this. A lot of it's just the tan too. So, ready to rinse?
Yeah.
Okay, so Oliver's going to rinse off what I cooked this morning here. Yeah, or just pull it off, that's okay. He's gonna rinse and then we'll see what we have. Oh, here's a grapevine that here's some more rinse. It came open. Here again is that grapevine that's just, it's just a mess, in my opinion. Kind of a mess, I guess I see some possibilities. But again, it's the tannin. It's the grapevine, it's just the wrong time to pick it, if you want a clearer print. Maple to me is the best. If you look at my embellished prints, I've separated some of the maple leaves. To me, they print the loveliest. They're all flopped together here, but individually they print really nice. So he's rinsing off, and when I rinse off, so this is what he's rinsing off, and so that was the grapevine. It gets all mushed, and that's what it looks like. And a lot of times it's just real slimy when you pull it apart. You have no idea what it was. So he's going to lay everything out on a sheet, dry. This is my first print. I'll hold them up as he's. Okay, so they're coming out, and there's a lot of yellow. This one has a lot of yellow. I would say it's not going to be a dark print, but you will see more of a pronunciation once it dries.
This one's really blue.
Oh my gosh, that's the sand cherry. So who knew?
The one you did.
Don't kill sand cherries. Because they're lovely. Oh my gosh, I think I would just print that. Sand cherry. So if you know of anybody that has a sand cherry, I have one if you want some. Not much left on it, but it will be next time. The grapevine. I did a lot of grapevine because I was hoping that I would get nice prints again. So here's one that got the color, and again, a lot of that yellow will go away, but it gets a lot of run in here. So here's the other side to that. So you're gonna raise them back. Here are the small ones. And that's two there. So I dry them, or this layers of sheets or whatever, if you have an old blanket, towel, just to absorb that initial water. So when I want them drier, if I'm in a hurry for them to dry, I will put them between like a pressing cloth, sheets, old sheet, because the color, it will bleed a little bit. I'll iron them. Otherwise, if you don't iron or put them between, I put them between like 3 layers of paper towels, just stacks. And then you have to change paper towels like every 30 minutes. And it absorbs the water slowly, but it will dry flat. You really want them to dry flat.
This is a good example of the different
Oh my
size.
God. Is that the same?
Yeah, same print, different size.
Oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. That's a sand cherry.
And both sides are really nice.
So the underside is this side, which kind of you think, I would think that the top side would be the prettiest side, but it's the underside that has maybe the most color that you want, or the most definition. Okay, oh, that's good. Oh, that's interesting. This is it's a geranium. it's kind of a mound tree. So it really prints well, and this will be defined once it dries. That prints.
Oh, that's your card.
That's what?
Your cardboard. I tried to see your card.
Oh, the cardboard, cool. Oh, all right, so here's one, and what do you think? It's is that the same? No. No, that's a more grapevine, which is really disappointing. Kind of that did bleed through from that side. Again, there's a maple leaf. They really print well. There's one that has picked up a little green.
This is a good example of what it looks like before you rinse it off. So,
This is the most exciting one. Oh, is that hydrangea?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Ah. Yeah, it's good. The yellow spot is a leaf, so I could embellish that and change that yellow. If it stays that yellow, you can tone that down with watercolor pencils, pastels. I use pastel. Yeah, that's nice. What else do I want? So really, that's basically it.